Facebook, what up? Fellas, what's up? Welcome to Man Up Friday. Coming at you guys a little bit early because I got my last night of class tonight at 8, so I wanted to make sure I got this posted earlier than later. So what's up? Welcome. If you're watching the replay, welcome. Show some love. So I am your gracious host, Mike, your mentor, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join me here on this page. If you're new to this page, you know there's a lot that's been going on here. My goal is to post every single day for 2019. That's the mission, and along with that mission is to help us as men become better fathers, better husbands, better leaders in our community, better employees. Wherever you need that little extra push in your life, I'm hoping that the content that I'm providing on this page will encourage you to go out and answer the higher calling that's on your life as a man, because we were endowed by our Creator with certain responsibilities, and this world's getting crazy because men aren't answering that call for a multitude of reasons, which we cover in depth on this page. And you don't know what you don't know. I mean, growing up, I didn't have a father in my life and in my household, so I needed to find out how to be a man through other ways. And when men are left on their own to find out what it means to be a man, that model becomes twisted, right? Me personally, I got into all kinds of stuff that drew me away from, I'd say my true purpose at those times in my lives, but looking back and reflecting on my life, God has shown me two things. One, that He was always there, and by His grace, I'm here today. And two, He actually placed mentors in my life through the books I was reading and consuming as a teenager, which gave me hope and inspired me to know that if these people were able to do something with their lives, that I could do something with my life as well. And secondly, the men that surrounded me in my community that refused to let me what's the word I'm looking for? They held me to a higher standard, right? They held me accountable. They called great things out of me. They spoke greatness into me, whether they were coaches, mentors, dads of my friends. They let me see how they interacted with their families, with their kids, with other people in the community, and they set a high bar. But in setting a high bar, they sowed seeds of wisdom into my life. So now that I'm older and I've been through a lot of crazy stuff, a lot of tough things in my life, you know what? I'm not going to die knowing that I had all this wisdom sowed into me and I didn't do anything to pass it on to others or to the next generation. So that's what this page is all about. It's about encouraging you to answer that call, because being a man is tough, right? I'm not making any excuses, but it's not an easy battle. It's not an easy battle being married. It's not an easy battle waking up and going to work each day. It's not easy finding your true purpose in life and what you were created to do and what only you can do here on this earth. Those things are all struggles that every man faces, and if we aren't intentional about getting into all of those things, and that requires us, as we'll do tonight again, to look back at our past and see the things that happened in our early life and how they affected who we are. We're not going to be able to move forward. We're not going to be able to find those things in our life. We're not going to be able to connect all the dots and see how this has been all cultivated and brought together for our purpose. Some people say that you find your purpose in your greatest pain. Well, my greatest pain was not having a dad, not knowing what it looked like to be a real man, left to figure that out on my own. And the content that we get in tonight was one of the things that showed me what that looked like, because you don't know what you don't know. And then when you're exposed to this stuff, all of a sudden, all these light bulbs start to come on. You start to think back and remember, oh man, I remember when that happened in my life. And yeah, I can see how that's affected me today, and that's stopped me from getting closer to my wife, or having deep relationships with other men, or walking around lying to myself and lying to others about how I feel and what I think about things, right? Playing this game instead of showing up and being yourself and being authentic, and vulnerable. You have a lot to give to this world. You have a lot to give to the people around you that are in your daily life. But if you're too busy posing, and faking it, then you're not only wasting your time and their time. You're wasting your gifts and your purpose, that God has planted in you. So that's the premise for this page, more or less. So every Friday we come together and we go through stuff out of this workbook right here, The Quest for Authentic Manhood by Dr. Robert Lewis. And this changed the trajectory of my life. We were living in Chicago. We had just moved there because I had finally a secret that I had been holding back from my wife had been exposed, and she wanted a divorce from me. And I threw myself at the mercy of God, and he spoke to me and he said, follow her wherever she goes. And I was like, well, God, she left. She ain't coming back. She's not here. And literally 5 seconds later, she walked in the door and said she would be willing to give it a chance. And I packed all my stuff in storage. I called my boss that I wasn't coming to work the next day. Didn't tell any of my friends, didn't tell any of my family. And I moved to Chicago like that. And it was tough, right? We had a lot of stuff we had to work through. I had to grow up big time. And I had to take responsibility for what I did to my marriage and to my wife. And it was hard. And I was at a point where I didn't know if it was worth it anymore, if that fight was worth it. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just going day to day, just trying to get through another day without feeling beat down or exhausted mentally, physically, emotionally. There were some other things that were happening in our life that were just culminating in this kind of perfect storm. And the devil was trying to take me out. He was trying to get me to quit on my marriage. He was trying to get me to quit on myself. But this was bigger than that, right? It wasn't just about me. It wasn't just about my wife. It wasn't just about my marriage. It wasn't just about our son. It wasn't just about the daughter that was coming into our future. This was about generations to come after me, and breaking generational curses of divorce on my family. Right? It was bigger than that, and I needed something to wake me up, to help me out, and I didn't know where to turn. And just so happened to be, I was in this. A guy at church, told me about, a guy at work told me about this church, and I went there to check it out, and I found out they had this men's group, and they were going to start going through this book, and I was like, all right. So I joined the group and started going to these meetings every Wednesday to go through this book. And man, my eyes just became open. For the first time, I was willing to truly and intentionally face the things that had happened in my past and deal with those and look at those and how they affected the person that I was up until that point. And when I was able to get real with myself and the guys that were in my group and be vulnerable, I was able to move past those things. I was able to take that shame, that guilt, all the crap that life piles on you, and drop that off and move past that and leave those things behind. and it hasn't been easy. I've picked some of those things back up along the journey, and I've had to realize that and then choose to put them back down again. Right? It's always constant work. It's always it's always self-reflection. But my life, no matter what happens, no matter how hard it got, even after that, it was worth it, 110%. You know what? And I would do it again because the richness, the satisfaction that I have in my life today is a direct is directly from dealing with this stuff in my past. I would not be the person who I am. I would not be as grateful as I am today. I would not have the perspective that I have on life today if I wouldn't have went through these things and processed it in this way by the information that I learned from going through this course. So that's what we do every Friday here on this channel. So I invite you to join us. Usually it's around 9 o'clock, 9:15. But like I said, I got class, so I wanted to get this done so you guys could have this. So we're going to jump into the content. Grab a notebook, something to write with. If you got Evernote on your phone, personally that's what I use. Take notes because something's going to hit you, and you know you're not going to just want to leave it here tonight. You're going to want to really dive into it and think about it. And if you're a believer, you know, ask God to reveal more of that to you, to show you the root of that, to say, hey God, you know, like what's going on with this? Like, show me the truth, Lord. Like, what do I need to do with this? And God is faithful, and He will show you. So let's get into this. Share my screen here a minute. Let me make sure what's going on here. Alright, we are good. I think I would have this figured out by now. You only do this every single week. Goodness gracious. One more thing, sorry. Alright. So this is Making a Healthy Break with Mom, part 2. You know, I haven't really shared much about my relationship with my mom up to this point. A lot of it's been about me and my dad and the shortcomings that have come from that. You know, and I have shared how I held the grudge against my mom, how I was angry at her because I thought she was the one who was making it impossible for us to be a family. And how now that I'm older and wiser, I realize that it wasn't my mom's fault. It was my dad's fault, 100%. I wouldn't say 100%, but 97%. It was my dad's fault. And, you know, hurt people. And I don't know much about my dad's life, but I do know there's a reason why there's issues from his own life as to why he couldn't be a good father and why he couldn't be a good husband. And if he were still alive, I wouldn't be mad at him about that. I definitely try to understand why he was the way that he was. But I say all that to say that you know, back again, I haven't talked much about me and my mom's relationship. I love my mom very much. My mom she's went through hell for us. All my mom ever wanted from my dad and all the boyfriends she had, and she got remarried at one point, my stepdad, is for her to have somebody appreciate her the way she appreciated them, to serve her the way she served them, to honor her the way that she honored them. My mom is the biggest giver that I know. She has an amazing heart. Her day job now is taking care of elderly people, and the way that she loves on them and does things. I mean, she's giving these people sponge baths. She's doing the stuff you don't want to think about, right? Like they need to go to the bathroom, they have accidents. She's taking care of all that. She's cleaning it up, and she's doing it with joy and with love because she truly loves these people. I mean, that's just the kind of the woman my mom is. But you know, we went through a rough patch when I was a teenager, primarily because, as we've talked about in weeks past, I was kind of trying to break away from my mom and be my own man and try to figure all that out. And I had this void inside me because I wasn't chosen by my dad. So because I didn't feel chosen by my dad, I went out looking for that somewhere else, and I turned to girls to find that. And I was chasing after girls, and my mom was trying to do the best that she could to raise this boy who, I was attractive to some ladies, and uh, stuff happens, right? And my mom was trying to help me navigate that, and for the most part, I didn't want to listen. I wanted to do it my own way. I wanted to figure things out my own way. My mom was trying to help me avoid some potential fires, but I didn't listen. I just went into them, and that caused a lot of friction in our lives. And I was I keep it real with you guys. I was very mouthy to my mom sometimes, to the point where, there's a couple times my mom slapped me pretty good. Pretty good. And we had some blow-ups, and we would get into it, and I would go to school, and I would get in fights. I would say I shared the story before about the nasty stuff that I said to my teacher that one time that I had to go back and apologize to. All that stuff stemmed from what was going on at home and the way that I was treating my mom, because I didn't know how to act like a man, and I was trying to figure it out. And because I didn't have an immediate, because I didn't have that manly presence in my life, or in my house at that time, like influencing me every hour of the day that I was home when I wasn't in school. I was getting influences from all these other places, and me and my mom, we got into it pretty good. There was this one time where I got in a fight at school. I got suspended, and I came home, and we were living at my grandparents' house. And I had this routine where I would like come home and I'd make chips and cheese, right? And I'd put these chips on the plate, and I'm like very particular. Like I make this like intricate interlocking base of chips, right? And then I pour the cheese over there, maybe put up some sliced tomatoes, some onion, and then throw it in the microwave, and then put some hot sauce on it when it's done. But I was in the midst of making some chips and cheese, and my mom came home. I remember she came home from work, or maybe she got called from the principal, because at this point they were like threatening to send me to the alternative school because I was getting into so many fights, and I was being so disrespectful at school and acting out. I remember making these chips and cheese, and I go to put it in the microwave, right? And my mom, she's home, and we're having this discussion, and she's upset at me, rightfully so, right? And she's raising her voice at me, and I don't remember what I said. I know it was super disrespectful. I'm pretty sure I told her to shut up. But I just remember also, as I was putting the chips and cheese in the microwave, and I had my face down, and all this, and I told her to shut up, and all of a sudden I seen this hand coming down, and I turned and looked. Sure enough, my mom slapped me, and when she slapped me, my head hit the microwave door. The door slammed shut, and I started to cry. And when I cry, like, I don't know what it is. There's this lion. There's this alter ego, this like incredible hawk-like character inside me that I get mad, and that grows and grows and grows, and then it just comes out with like all this ferociousness and this just, I'm like a totally different person. Normally I'm laid back, but when that happens and I get to that point, it's like, you better look out, because I will run through a wall to get at you. And when that happened, that started coming on me, and I felt like I was going to do something that I would regret. So I hopped the counter, I went through the mud room, and I was gonna leave. And my mom, she, went around the counter and she went out the front door, and she met me at the door going into the garage. And I had opened the garage door because I was gonna go through the garage door. And she was basically like, "Where are you going? You're not leaving and going anywhere." And I was like, "Yes, I am. I'm out of here. Like I need to leave. Otherwise, something's gonna happen." And she cornered me, and she started backing me into the mudroom door. And she reached up and she hit the garage door opener, and the garage started coming back down. So I acted like I was going with her, and walked into the door. And after like 2 steps, I did the old okey doke spin move, and spun off her and ran and dove under the garage door as it was coming down. And then I started running down this hill at my grandpa's, and then there was this field about a football length, maybe a little bit more, between us and between where my best friend Tommy lived in his house. And I just took off running towards him. I don't know why. That was going to be my place of refuge. And as I'm running across the field, I hear something, and I look back over my shoulder, and my mom is in her car chasing me through the field in the car, coming after me. And we start to go up there was this field, and then there was this hill, right? And their house was on the other side of this hill. And so I'm running up the hill, and she's getting closer and closer. And I ended up falling down at the top of the hill, and she stopped the car. The door swings open, and she goes to get out. And as she's going to get out, I was able to scramble back on my feet, and then I ran down the other side of the hill, ran down across the front of their house, around into the garage, and I started banging on the door and screaming for my friend Tom. And he came, and he opened up the door, or maybe his sister opened the door, and I just pushed my way through and turned and locked the door. And I remember Tom was standing there, and he's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, I'm crying, and I'm like, "Hey, my mom's, she's mad, and she's coming after me, and like I just need to hide out here for a little bit." And all of a sudden you see my mom running down, because they had a bunch of windows along the side of their house. You see my mom running past, and the next thing you know, she's knocking on the front door, and she's asking for the door to be open, and she's telling my friend Tom that he needs to open the door, that this is none of his business, and I need to come home with her. And I'm screaming and crying and yelling at her, and saying that she just needs to leave me alone, and I just need to cool off, and she needs to cool off. And finally my friend Tom was like, "I'm calling the police." So my mom left, and sure enough, the police came, and they talked to me when I was at Tom's, and kind of asked me what's going on, and I told them. And then they brought me back over to my grandma's house, and they pulled up in the driveway and made me stay in the back of the police car, and went in and talked to my grandma and my mom. And there's more to the story, but I remember the police officer coming back out, and him getting in the car and asking me what I wanted. And I started to cry, and I told him that I just wanted my mom to stop hitting me. And now that I'm older, I get it, right? Like, I was super mouthy, and I'm not making an excuse for what happened, but in all reality, I don't blame my mom for lapping me upside the head and knocking some sense into me. But I told the police officer, that I just wanted her to stop do that, and the police told me, they were like, "Well, we talked to your grandma and your mom, and it sounds like you've been getting in a lot of trouble, and if we have to come back here, we're gonna take you to juvie. Now get out and go in." And I know what they were doing. Now that I'm older, I think they were just trying to kind of scare some sense into me, to stop me from being so disrespectful and stuff. And that did scare me a little bit, because I didn't want to go to juvie, and I didn't want to be taken away. And me and my mom, we had some things to work on, and those type of our relationship, as that grew, And as my dad came back on the scene, and I explained what happened with my dad and my mom, that helped widen this relationship that me and my mom had, and caused a lot of friction. And I had to come to grips with that, and deal with that, and realize that there was things that took place in my life between me and my mom that I needed to take responsibility for, and I needed to uh, rectify that with my mom if I was going to have a healthier marriage, if I was going to lead a better life. And that's what this is about. So I share my story in all these stories that I share, in hopes of encouraging you, uh, one, to let you know that there's other people that have been through some crazy stuff, right? We all got crazy stories, crazy stuff that happened to us, but only some people are willing to, one, be vulnerable with that, two, do something about it, and three, move past it, right? And that's what this is all about. So sorry for the long-winded story. Here's tonight's content. Making a Healthy Break with Mom, part 2. We'll just do a quick review. I'm really going to fly through this, right? So we talked about last week, the legs of manhood are established in the home, right? A definition of the mother wound is an unhealthy emotional relationship with mother that causes a son to either be threatened by the influence of women later on in life, or to over-identify and become submissive to that influence. There's two major consequences of this. One, sons can become overly passive in regards to women. That leads to soft males. We seek out other things like fantasy and pornography. And these are all healthy desires, right? To be intimate and to experience those feelings of being chosen, but they're expressed in unhealthy ways by seeking these things out. And two, the feminized male, and also the passive husband, right? These are things that we don't have a backbone, can't stick up for ourselves. Not to say that there's not to be compromise, but we don't stand our ground, and we let people, and particularly women, walk all over us because of the relationship that we hold with our mother. And two, sons can be overly dominant in regard to women. We develop this conquering masculinity, right? This is the other side of that. And in extreme cases, it leads to domestic violence and rape, and other abusive treatment towards women. There can be a fierce independence, which also leads to a fear of becoming vulnerable, which I think a lot of men struggle with, on some level or another. I can relate to the fierce independence because of all the stuff that was going on in my home and with my mom, and she was trying to be the best mom she could, but she was exerting this control, and it was like the opposite sides of a magnet, right? Like trying to come together, and as much as they were trying to come together, that force only got stronger, and it repels them apart. And that was me and my mom. She was trying to exert this control and to help me out, and it was out of love, but her doing that was only pushing me further and further away, because I was screaming and kicking to be independent, to the fact where I left my house when I was 16, and I didn't come back to my mom's house. And another thing is, out of this, you can become a dominant husband, a very controlling husband. You're the dictator in your house, right? Now, the difficulty of this wound is it's one of attention, or of inattention and over-attention. And it's disguised as love and care, but it feels like control. Because moms mean well when they do this, right? They birthed us. They raised us. They took care of us. Like, they nurtured us, right? And they're just trying to do what their motherly instincts are supposed to lead them to do. But there needs to be that break, right? That healthy break. So here's 7 suggestions for healing this wound. If you can identify with this, and these are awesome, right? So the first one is, always start with understanding that breaking mom's over-involvement is good for you, and it's good for her. Authentic manhood is impossible without it, right? You can't get to being a real man without having a break from your mom and being able to be your own person. So what you need to do is you need to recognize that your ultimate goal is to become a man whose vision is fixed on what God thinks, not what your mom thinks about you. Stop complaining or struggling with mom. If you have this wound, get support, encouragement, and the help you need from other men and or a counselor, and develop a plan for healthy independence from mom. Invite their feedback to avoid serious errors, making a healthy break, right? Like, we want to touch all these wounds very delicately and deal with them in a very honoring way, not just the wound, but the other people that are a part of causing these wounds, or affecting these wounds in our lives, right? So this plan that you make should address specific issues that are troublesome, with specific applications, right? So if you're a mom, like, and this is just off the top of my head, so if your mom is trying to be involved in your marriage all the time, and she's giving you advice on, what you need to do with your wife, or telling you, your wife shouldn't be doing this and she shouldn't be doing that, like, you need to address that with your mom, because even though she means well, you need to have healthy boundaries with your mother, and you don't have healthy boundaries if that's what's taking place. And you need to develop some specific applications, some specific strategies to where you can deal with that in a healthy way. Whether that's just you not being around your mom as much. Maybe, I knew of a story of a mother that was calling her son, who was in his late 30s, every single night, right? And he had to put a stop to that, because that just isn't healthy, right? He had to be his own person. He needed to stick up for himself, for his own marriage, deal with those things himself. God bless his mom, but that was no longer her place. 2, this plan should establish time-tested boundaries for how you and mom will interact in the future, right? What's appropriate to talk about? What's not appropriate to talk about? When is it appropriate for them to come over? When is it not appropriate for them to come over? I know of other cases where moms just show up at their son's house. Okay, I'm gonna come over, do the laundry, I'm gonna tidy up, I'm gonna cook you dinner. And these are men that are living on their own. You're not in your mom's house anymore. You need to do that stuff for yourself. If yeah, I get it, right? Because my mom's come over and she's helped out a little bit with us when we've had things going on, but that's a rare occasion. These things shouldn't be the norm. This plan should include clear consequences attached to these boundary violations, right? These things have to be enforced, because if they're not enforced and you're not serious about it, they're just going to continue to occur. And right, we talked about a couple weeks ago the physical umbilical cord being cut, right? Well, not only does that physical umbilical cord need to be cut, that emotional umbilical cord needs to be cut. And if you're allowing your mother to violate your boundaries that you're putting in place, you still have that emotional umbilical cord there. And it's tied to you and your mom, and she's going wherever you're going, and it's not good. It's not healthy for you. It's not a good father-mother relationship. So communicate your plan in one of the following ways to your mom, and stand your ground regardless of how she responds. Through a new way of relating, right? I don't know, maybe you talk to your mom on the phone. Maybe you see your mom for lunch once a week. Maybe you text your mom back and forth. Maybe you need to take a new approach to that. So if you're a phone call person, maybe you need to go see them in person. If you're a texting person, maybe you need to pick up the phone so they can actually hear your voice, right? So that's the other suggestion, right, as we have right here, through a face-to-face meeting, if necessary. And I'll tell you what I had to do with my mom. I suggest writing a letter. And I wrote a letter to my mother, and for 2 reasons. One, when you try to meet with somebody and you try to talk to them, because a lot of these things can be of a sensitive nature, it's natural for anybody to become defensive and offer up a reason as to why they did what they did. And I'm not saying offering up a reason for why they did what they did is bad, but you need a format that allows you to get everything out that you need to get out without being interrupted, without being knocked off that path, so you can stay focused and get to the root of these things and express how you're feeling. And the only way that I know how to do that without any distraction from the other party or from the other person is to write a letter. Now, what I suggest is if you write a letter, those people that are your confidants, that are your circle, let them read the letter and ask for their feedback. Is this honoring of my mother? Is this come from a place of love, right? Or a place of disappointment, hurt, and anger, right? Because we want to be honoring of our parents. The Bible says to honor your mother and father. That never ends. And two, we want it to be truthful, but the truth out of love. So I shared my letter with the guys in my group, and I sent it to my mom. And the third reason that you write a letter, right? Like, the whole point of all of this, of any of these suggestions, while it's good for you and them, it's about you. It's not about them, right? So just you taking the time to write the letter and then give the letter to them, you're doing that for yourself. So you can release yourself of the attachment to these things that happened in the past. So you can start to move on to them. So back to the training here. Use the men in your life to report back to for clarity, encouragement, and accountability, and moving forward with this plan with your mother and having appropriate boundaries. So this next one is huge, right? If you're married, tell your wife you recognize the problem with an interfering mom and that you will take responsibility to correct it. And then you need to ask for your wife's support and prayer. But this is key. Ask her not to get involved. And the reason she's not getting involved is because it's your problem, not hers. And you're a man, you need to take care of your own problems, not have your wife do it for you. Right? So there needs to be that other healthy boundary between you and your wife. And you'll notice that as you handle these things with your mother, consequently, your relationship with your wife will improve. In some cases, your effort to establish a healthy relationship with mom will result in a time of emotional punishment or even your mom's angry withdrawal, right? My mom had to take some time to process what I wrote her. It's understandable, right? These things aren't easy to deal with, and everyone's going to deal with them in your own way. And that other person may withdraw, but don't be derailed or discouraged by it. In time they're going to adjust, and God will work in their hearts, and they will come back around. All right, so there's a critical need today for fathers to call teenage sons away from dependency on mom to manhood. And this is our responsibility as fathers, right? And even I suggest as leaders in our community, right? So I'll finish that in a second. All right, so this call away needs to be clear and direct. We've talked about this before. This call needs to be embraced by the sons, the dad, and the mom to be effective. And this call away needs to employ a ceremony. And we've talked about this on the Tuesday Thoughts here on this channel, right? The need for a manhood ceremony, right? Because in Western society, there is no, what's the word I'm looking for? Man, it's escaping my mouth. There is no definitive time for when a man becomes a man. You ask a multitude of guys, you're going to get a multitude of answers. When I drank my first beer, when I smoked my first cigarette, when I turned 18, when I turned 21, when I slept with a woman for the first time, when I was able to move out of my house and pay my own bills for the first time, right? There's no clear, direct activity and ceremony around it that welcomes men into manhood. You need to establish that. I can't tell you how important that is for your sons, right? And if you don't have a son, but you do know this to be true, I would encourage you to get with some of the dads that you know and talk about this idea and being a part of it with their sons. So I'm in the midst of planning the second phase of my own son's manhood ceremony, right? We had the first one when he was at age 13. We're having the second one when he turns 18, and we'll have another one before or when he's going to get married, and he's going to be he's going to have responsibility in over somebody else, right? In coming together with somebody else and doing life with them, and we want to help move him into those phases of life in a healthy, productive way. So, in part of that, I've enlisted another buddy of mine whose son is the same age, and we're going to do this together because I know his son will appreciate it and his son needs it. So you don't have to have your own son to be able to do this, right? To be a part of this, right? It's all about making a difference in young men's life, right? And you don't have to have your own son to look outside of yourself and to do that, right? With this knowledge. The conclusion, right, as we wrap it up. The legs of masculinity, weak or strong, on which a man stands, are established at home. The way your kids see you act at home is the way that they're going to act out in life. So if you're crazy, you're explosive, you have a low emotional IQ, it's a pretty good chance that's the way your kids are going to be when they grow up, and the way that they act with other people, and the way that they act towards their own kids. So don't take it for granted, right? Like what you're doing as a father, as a parent, as a husband. I want to posit to you that it has eternal significance. Eternal. That those seeds are going to be carried from generation to generation to generation to generation. Right? If you're a womanizer like my dad was, I started to go that way. Right? My dad told me, I think I was 16, maybe 7, no, I think I was 14 or 15. It was one of the rare times that my dad was around, and he was bringing me to this bank to give me some money because he was trying to pay for his lack of being in my life. And he was asking me if I had a girlfriend, and I was telling him I did, and he's like, man, why do you want a girlfriend? He's like, you don't want to be tied down to one girl. Like, there's so many beautiful women in the world and so much to explore and see. He's like, when you're 21, or maybe he said when I was 18, one of those ages, he's like, I'm taking you to a brothel. And okay, right? Like, what do you say to that, right? And from his position, like, what have you dealt with, and where have you come from as a man that you're saying this to your son, and that's what you want to pass on to your son? And I really say that with no judgment, right? Because I've talked before about, like, I don't know anything about my dad's past and what seeds were planted in him, but he was trying to plant those seeds in me, right? Thank you, baby. And so then I think about what seeds am I planting in my son, because he's going to take those seeds and then he's going to plant them in his son, and then his son's going to plant them in that son, right? These things are spread from generation to generation. I guarantee if you look in your family tree, you can see things that have been passed down from your grandfather to your father to you, that you may be even passing on to your son right now, whether it's anger, whether it's womanizing, right? Whether it's emotional detachment, all types of things. So what you stand for in your home and what you sow into your kids is what they'll, all that stuff's established at home, and that's what they'll bring out into their life, and into their marriage, and into their roles as parents. It doesn't stop with you, buddy. So begin to work on your own manhood plan. So there's a manhood plan that comes with this workbook. So I want to offer you guys two choices if you're interested. One, you can easily go on Google, and you can Google the Quest for Authentic Manhood, and you can buy a workbook. And in the back of the workbook, it will have a manhood plan. I think the workbooks maybe are like $7 or something like that. I know somebody who pinged me that actually went and did that when we started this. Or if you're interested, right, you can drop a comment down below. You can just put manhood plan, or you can send me a DM that says manhood plan. And what I will do is I will send you a copy of the manhood plan. I'll have it typed up, and I'll send it over to you. And what it is it's a series of questions that you will work through and you will answer as we continue to move through this course, that'll allow you to take a look at some of these issues on a deeper level, and then strategically walk you through how you want to deal with those and how you want to change your life and the life of the generations to come that are coming underneath you. And remember, it's all going to be because of the work that you're doing now, right? It has an eternal difference. It does. So the first question for tonight that I want you to think about is, how will you handle the absent father wound, that we went through? If that's you, if that's part of your story, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to continue living your life like you are, unfulfilled, scared to move into a deeper relationship with your wife, or maybe a deeper relationship with your kids, or live a life full of real enjoyment and satisfaction because of some stuff your dad maybe said to you as a kid, or maybe he did some stuff to you as a kid, right? I just heard another story today of a man that went through some stuff with his dad, right? And he's trying to work through it. But the baggage, the lies that we start to believe that build up over the years because of this stuff and because of us never addressing it, it's like it compounds like interest, right? The longer it goes on, the heavier and heavier and heavier and thicker and thicker and thicker it gets. But you know what? If we're willing to be brave and we're willing to face it, the wall will actually come down a lot faster than what it went up. So I want to encourage you. How will you handle the absent father wound? And 2, how will you address the overly bonded with mother wound if this wound has affected you? What are you going to do? You're going to pick up the phone, give your dad a call, give your mom a call, ask to see him in person, talk to him, talk about some issues? Maybe God's put it on your heart to write them a letter, right? So whatever it is, think whatever wound you've been affected by, think about that. And then think about how can you lovingly and honorably, in an honoring way, deal with that person. And remember, no matter what their response is, positive or negative, they will be affected by it, yes, but it's not about them. It's about you. And if you do it in an honoring and loving way, God is going to honor you for that in amazing ways. I guarantee it. So that is it, my friends, for tonight. I appreciate you guys tuning into this and checking out, what we got going on today. With dealing with the mother wound. Why can't I talk right now? But I appreciate you guys. If I can do anything to help you guys out, you need just somebody to listen to. You need some advice on navigating some of these things. I would love to talk to you. I'd love to listen to you. So hit me up, and I'll do what I can to help you out. I really do mean that. I don't do this to be famous. I don't do this because I think that I'm better than other people. I do this because I really do care. There's people watching these videos that I don't even know, right? And I can authentically say that if you were standing here face to face with me, that I love you. I don't care about what you've done in your past. I don't care about what you're doing right now. I love you because I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be down in that hole. not knowing what you're going to do next, not knowing who you are, walking around acting like everything's okay, but at home it's pure hell. And all you want is to be able to take that mask off and to feel safe, and for someone to reach down in that hole, look you in the eyes and say, I got you, brother. I got you. I'm going to do life with you. I'm going to help you out. I'm going to listen. I'm going to be there. I'm going to walk through this with you. I'm here for you, man. So, I love you guys. See you guys tomorrow for the Saturday shout out. Hope you have a good Friday. Thanks again. If you know anybody that could use this, please continue to share the word. This is going all around the world, right? There is a movement inside of men's hearts that is taking place. Not only in this country, all around the world. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. I had another lunch meeting today with some guys, and they were all saying the same thing. All this stuff that's happening with not only directly to them, but indirectly with other conversations that they're having with other men. There's something stirring in the hearts of men, right? And it's God. God is moving in the lives of men. He is calling us back to our rightful place in society. He is saying, where are all the real men? Stand up. Speak up. Live your life with purpose. Live your life with honor. Live your life. Responsibility. Reject passivity. Have courage. Invest eternally. He's calling us, guys. And all we got to do is look ourselves in the mirror and say, I am responsible for me. And I am going to do everything that I can to make myself a better person and to honor that calling on my life. And it'll be like a little tiny pebble thrown in a pond. And the ripples will go out from there as we step into and walk out in obedience to what God is calling us to. I love you. Good night.